So today's topic is how to thrive in a challenging market. Whether or not you've looked at the data that's out there, the anecdotal evidence will tell you that a lot of people are hurting right now in Lubbock. So we're gonna start way back in the winter of 2023. So this past winter, got with everyone in my company, said, hey, we're gonna have a company-wide meeting. Everyone has to be there and it's gonna be on this date. So everyone was like, oh man, who messed up? Like, what's going on? What did I do? So we get there and I start sharing some data on the Lubbock market. And I said, all right guys, gotta tell y'all something. Our market's in a downturn. Not the best news that you wanna be sharing, especially for me, because if y'all know me, I'm like, Team Lubbock, everyone come to Lubbock. See, whenever the football team starts doing well, which is usually like the first 3 games of the season, but when they start doing well, I'm like, man, Tech's gonna increase its status, our enrollment's gonna go up, population's gonna grow, the economy's gonna grow. Like, I'm that guy, so I'm all for come to Lubbock, let's grow Lubbock. So I'm the last guy that wants to be there talking to my company and saying, hey, our market's in a downturn. We've gotta adapt, we've gotta change, right? That's not me, but as the leader of the company and having people that are depending on me for providing for their families, for building their futures, I couldn't just ignore what I was seeing. And the next thing I shared with them is that typically when you hear about a recession or a real estate downturn, a word that's associated with it is the word crisis. And my buddy Pat Precourt told me this. Crisis has 2 characters in Chinese, and that's what they are. I hope there's not anyone that understands Chinese to fact check me. One of those characters means danger, and the other one means opportunity. Those are the 2 characters that make up the word crisis. And when you think about a market like what we've been in for about the last year, you're like, that pretty well sums it up. There's a lot of ways that you can get got in this market, but there's also tremendous opportunity in this market. And it's kind of that balance of at any phase of the market, certain things are gonna be better, certain things are gonna be worse. So I shared this word, crisis, with the team, and what I told them and what I wanna challenge y'all with is how can you minimize the danger and set yourself up to capitalize on the opportunity? So in any kind of a challenging market, even if the market's great, but you're in a phase of your business where you're growing, you're learning, you're making mistakes, all of that, how can you minimize the risk to set yourself up to capitalize on the opportunities? And so the next question I want to ask y'all is just, how do you react when things get tough? You get mad at the world? Do you blame everyone? You point fingers at everyone around you? Or do you do what I see a lot of, especially with my generation, a little bit younger generation, is we bury our head in the sand. I don't want to see it. Like, I'm just gonna act like nothing's happening. Hopefully the predator doesn't come by and rip my throat out, but hey, if they do, at least I won't have been scared because I didn't see him coming. And they ignore everything that's going on around them in reality. Terrible approach, but you're probably inclined to do one of those 3. And so today, you might be saying, I'm having the best year of my life, like my business is doing great. That could be you. You could be at rock bottom right now, or maybe you're facing a certain level of challenges. So my goal today is to give y'all some hope, give y'all some strategies, some tools, some tactical things that you can take, whatever you're facing, whatever challenges you have now, or whatever is gonna hit you for the rest of this year, so that you can thrive in a difficult market. You know, Warren Buffett always says, be greedy when everyone's fearful, be fearful when everyone's greedy, right? So he's saying if the market's down, that's the time to what? To buy, to be greedy, to take over market share, right? What that doesn't take into consideration is the mindset piece. Like, what mindset do you have to have when everyone else, and we are, as humans, we feed off of what's around us, off of our circle, off of what we see. Everyone around you is like, the sky is falling. How can you just have that switch to say, all right, now's my time to go? People think you're crazy, right? And for me, there was a time back in 2019, basically I had a bunch of money that was supposed to come in, a bunch of deals that were supposed to sell, people that were supposed to pay me for construction jobs, all this stuff. And then I had a bunch of bills that were supposed to get paid out. And the money that was coming in was gonna cover it and then some. But has anyone heard of Murphy's Law? Specifically, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So that was definitely in full effect. That law was January 2019 for me. Murphy's Law was in effect. So I had all that stuff happen. I've got pages and pages. This deal falls through after we were promised the buyers had plenty of cash. $70,000 gone from that deal. Houses on the market with no sales, 31st, 39th, 40. I got 10 addresses here, all kinds of stuff. Murphy's Law hit me. And I had written in here that I was punishing myself by going to bed at 4 a.m. because some weird thing inside of me was like, I don't deserve to feel good right now. I don't deserve to sleep. Plus sleep really sucked because every single morning I would wake up, and y'all know when you wake up and you have that cortisol rush through you and like adrenaline, like maybe you hear a bang in the house and you're just like, that breath comes in, it's like fight or flight right there. That's how I was every single morning for 30 days. It was miserable. So I didn't want to go to sleep because I didn't want to have to wake up. But what I wrote in here is that the days get better the longer I'm awake, and for whatever reason, I still had the energy to go. And so through that time, I came up with these 3 things to help me with my mindset. First one is I said, I will take ownership of where I'm at today. You didn't just wake up in a simulation yesterday and now you're like, oh man, I can't believe the situation I'm in. No, if you are honest with yourself, whatever situation you find yourself in, whether you love it and you're like, life is great, you did that. If you hate it and you're like, this sucks, I hate this, who made the decisions to get you there? It was you. So I had to realize that, and I had to take ownership. Because until you take ownership, you're going to continue to be the victim and bad things are going to continue to happen. Second one, I will focus on what I can control. And so the opposite of this is if you don't focus on what you can control, you will dive into the pool of just anxiety and what ifs. It's paralyzing, all the different scenarios that you could get hit by. So focus on what you can control. And the third thing I said is I'm going to make decisions based on what is best for me today. I'm not going to worry about how it should have been, how things were supposed to go, what could have happened. When I got into this situation, this and this was supposed to happen. So-and-so was supposed to be helping me out and they backed out. I'm not going to live in that. I'm going to look at, okay, what are the resources and tools I have right now today? And what decisions do I need to make with those today to move forward in my business, in my life? That's a 3-step checklist. You go over this every single day during challenging times. Now, if times aren't challenging, these are good to have, but hopefully by then they'll be just ingrained in you. They'll be second nature. Hopefully no one walks out on me on this one, because I'm gonna hit y'all with some hard truths, okay? So the first one is that if you're in the middle of a challenging time, it's not the time for a lifestyle business. Like your 4-hour work week dream, that's cool. You can get back to that. Maybe you were even there already, and then you got taken out of it because now you're hit with some challenges you gotta solve. That's fine. This is not the time for a nice lifestyle business. This is a time, put your boots on, get to work, solve these problems, get yourself in a better situation. Then you wanna go back to that type of lifestyle? Great. But also realize that it's not gonna be forever. Like if you have to dig in and you have to say no to a lot of other things and you're spending your free time solving your challenges, it's okay. It'll get back to normal. It's not forever, just a short period of time. Second hard truth is I wanna let y'all know that if you are in a situation where you're struggling, just know that there's people right now facing the same market, same conditions, maybe even in the same business that are having their best year they've ever had. You're struggling, they're making more money than they've ever made, all right? So everyone wants to focus here on, oh, the economy is this, the economy is that, the economy is so bad, right? We all want to blame the economy. It's not about the economy. What you're really saying is you're talking about your economy. Your economy is bad. Your economy isn't working for you. Because how could there be people facing the exact same market, the exact same circumstances? You're suffering. You're not doing well. They're thriving. They're having the best year ever because their economy is working and yours isn't. That's a hard truth. If you will just embrace it, as Bible says, the truth can set you free. Because if you embrace that and you take ownership of wherever I am today, I got me here. My decisions, my choices, my mindset got me here, and you embrace that, then you can also see, okay, someone else did it a different way. Someone else is in the same environment, but they're getting different results. So if they can do it, I can do it. And so taking that approach, you realize, okay, I just have to minimize my danger, right? Danger is the first half of it. Just have to minimize my danger and set myself up in the right way so I can capitalize on the opportunities. So if that hurt you, if that impacted you, and you're like, dang, that was a slap to the face. Don't let it go to waste. Embrace that feeling and realize there's people doing great right now. You can too if you just set yourself up in the right way. You take that and you use this time to become great at your craft. Good businesses are built during tough times. This is when you have to get good. I have innovated more in our company in the last 6 months since that winter, since we had that conversation. We said, hey, the market's in a downturn. We can't put our heads in the sand. What are we gonna do? What do we need to change? How do we need to set ourselves up? There's been more innovation specifically from me, from my involvement, from that time until now, compared to any other time period that I can think of in my business. So you gotta embrace it. This is the time where you get really good at business. And what might happen is that you get really, really good at those things that have become hard. And maybe you do that just to get the same results you were getting before. You get really good at it and you're not getting killer results. You're getting the same as you got when times were easy. But guess what? When times get easy again, you're not gonna lose those skills. You're not gonna lose the systems and the processes that you developed, all the improvements. When the tailwind starts coming, then you're gonna be back. This is easy. So use this time to really, really become great at whatever your craft is, whatever your business is. So I've got 2 strategies. The first one comes from the founder of Airbnb. Does anyone know his story of how he got started? He built his business in a really weird way. The first listing was someone's couch. So it wasn't even a full room. It wasn't a full house, it was a couch. And the founder of Airbnb went to that couch, booked it, stayed there as a guest just to see what the experience was like. More people listed their stuff. He would book it, he would go stay, see what the experience was like, and he just kept doing that over and over. So he got hands-on, firsthand experience from the guest side, exactly what people's experience would be like. And Airbnb is global, like it's everywhere on the earth that there's a hut or a house or a bus or an RV. So why did he go to every single listing that he could? Why did you do that? And he said, I'm gonna do the things that I know I won't be able to do when we get big. I'm gonna do those things now. And that's how we're gonna become great. That same thing I was talking about. He wasn't focused on how do I get my 4-hour work week system in place and just let someone else take it. He was just worried about how can I become great. So the first strategy is do things that don't scale. When the market picks up and you start getting a lot more business, you're not gonna have time to do these things, but do them now. And if you think about specific challenges that you have, I wanna get y'all's brain going on these challenges. Think about what is the biggest issue or obstacle I'm facing in my business right now. Just put that in your mind. Think about a way that you could solve just this one problem. If I spend an entire day or I spend an entire week trying to solve this, what solution would I put in place? Think about that. Those are the types of strategies I would highly recommend that you do during a challenging time in your business. Second one is go back to things that you used to do but stop doing. So what I say is you use different tools at different times. Although in my company we have lots of systems and processes, we don't just apply those to everything across the board. There's some nuance there. If this is a situation, you use this tool. But if a similar situation happens but you want a different outcome, you use this tool, right? So we think about during the run-up of 2020 to late 2022, it got really easy to sell a house, right? The challenge was just how many houses can I get under contract and put them on the market and they're gonna sell. So all the work that realtors would do to do open houses, to go bake cookies, to go mail the neighbors and tell them, hey, we got a house coming up. You know, all of these things, go door knocking, call their list, really be proactive. They didn't have to really do them too much more whenever houses were easy to sell. Go back to some of those tools, some of those things that worked when the market was a little bit different before, reconsider using those now. So something else we know, and I've alluded to this, is that at every phase of the market, whether it's recession, recovery, expansion, or peak, certain things will get harder, but other things will get easier, right? So this is a matrix. This is what it takes to have a real estate business. You gotta have deals and you gotta have financing. If you got a deal and you got financing, you put them together, then you've got the foundations for a real estate business. The more times you can do that, that's how you scale a real estate business. Those are the 2 factors. Well, at certain times of the market, it's easier to buy, it's harder to sell. So during a recession, there's a lot more deals floating out there, a lot more distressed sellers, foreclosures, all this stuff's happening. And so you can buy a deal, but can you sell it? That's the challenging part. And during a recession, it's harder to borrow funds. It's harder to get money. You're like, well, how is it easy to buy deals if it's hard to get funding for it? That's the challenge of business, right? That's how you have a business opportunity. You don't want things to be too easy, because then literally anyone could just read a single book and go out there and compete tit for tat with you. You don't want that, right? You want a little bit of a moat, even if it's a tiny one. Real estate does not have a big barrier to entry, but you want at least a tiny one, right? During a recovery, kind of the same thing, but a little bit easier to sell, slightly more competition buying, a little bit more financing available. During an expansion, there's money flying, money is flowing. Think about 2021, money was just going to everybody. Houses were selling like nothing. You put it on the market, sold. You did a horrible rehab job, sold. Didn't matter. You didn't have to have a good looking house, stuff just sold. And there was money to borrow, because money was basically free, right? During a peak, think late 2022 in Lubbock, it's pretty easy to sell, not as easy, and there's still quite a bit of money available, right? But on the expansion in the peak, it's harder to find deals to buy, right? So that's the challenge. And so certain things are easier, certain things are more challenging. So in each stage of the market, you just got to figure out, okay, what is going to be my headwind? What's going to be the more challenging thing to solve right now? That's the thing I might put a little bit more energy into. That's the thing I might do things that don't scale in. I may go the extra mile here. So if we're in a recession or recovery, you may want to focus a little bit more on your lender relationships. You may want to focus a little bit more on your selling strategies. Or maybe you say, hey, if it's so hard to sell, I'm just not going to even try. I'll just rent everything. I'll keep everything as a rental, right? You probably don't have to focus too much on buying. Maybe not, right? Depends on your business. But market-wide, that's typically not something that people struggle with, when there's thousands of foreclosures, which that's not how it is quite right now. But if there's just all these listings, all these houses, you can kind of go just cherry pick, right? So you need to solve on the exit and the funding side. If you can solve those two, you've got the financing, you've got the deal, you put those together, you do as many deals as you can find those for. And a question I've been asking myself, and I think I found an answer that makes sense, is why do people think the recession phase is so hard in a market? Because we just saw, I'll go back. So in the recession, it's easier to buy, but it's harder to sell. It's harder to get financing. But in an expansion, not many people think of that one as hard, right? Well, it's easy to sell, but it's hard to buy. So the reason I think people look at recessions as so difficult is because in an expansion, the hard there, it's hard to find deals. So when you find a deal, you're gonna make good money on it. If it's hard, that means I'm only making money on 10 houses and not 20. So I'm not making as much as I wanted. But the hard in a recession, I've got the deals because that part was easy, right? But I can't sell them and you actually lose money. And it's a real thing. So sure, on paper, one might be easier on this side, harder on this, and then you just flip-flop them. You're like, oh, I'll figure out the opposite. But when people start losing money as opposed to not making as much, that's where it really gets ingrained in people's minds as, oh, this is a lot harder. And so putting it up here like this, you can start to take a little step back. Like you're so entrenched in things, you're so entrenched in what you're doing in your business, take a little step back. So just like when things were going crazy and I thought, oh, this is easy. Well, really it was harder to find deals, but we could sell them. So now it's easier to find deals. We just need to figure out how to get them sold. Be a little bit more logical. So the first thing I have, the first tactic is when marketing for deals, that's number one, right? To get a deal, you got to market for it. Use your specific advantage. So an advantage that every single person in this room has over me, including my wife, is your network, your personal network. And I say that because when we were just dating, she referred a deal to me to buy with her neighbor, and I bought her neighbor's house and she got paid $1,000 for a referral fee. So I would have never met her neighbor. So that's one advantage that each of you has over each other, over me, is you have your circle of influence. You also have the things that you're naturally good at. Like me, I don't mind speaking. I don't mind organizing a group. I like organizing a group. I like hanging out with y'all, right? So I can get in here. Maybe I'll get some referrals. Maybe I'll be able to help some people out on deals they're doing. You may be tapped into a network of doctors, a network of dentists, and you may be able to leverage them, not necessarily on the buy side, but they may just want to throw 20% down on a deal and just buy it at retail and just say, hey, help me out. So when it comes to marketing, what other advantages do you have? Bring back in the old school tools. Stuff that worked in the past, bring those back. Those are the two important things I want to leave y'all with and go on to the next one. Funding. David Fuller told me this quote and I loved it. He said, become an equal opportunity borrower. I was having some issues at my bank. I'm struggling here because this is the bank that gave me a chance, but they keep rejecting my deals and they keep making things hard on me. He was like, no, you got to be an equal opportunity borrower. He said, you need to get access to as much capital as you can, and it's not rude. So the more lending options that you can have, the better. What my approach is with it is, if a bank likes a certain type of deal, I try to feed them those certain type of deals. If they say, we don't really like this, if it's too far outside of what they want, I don't try to convince them. I'm like, no worries. This bank likes that type of thing. And they're like, I love your deals. And then all the lenders are like, you bring us the best deals. I'm like, well, yeah, we bring you the deals that you told us you wanted. So I would highly recommend, before you need them, before you have a time crunch and a timeline, open up conversations, meet new lenders, make those connections, and become an equal opportunity borrower is the best advice I could tell you. Start building your lending network before you need them. Get creative on deal structures. A lot of the deals we've been buying, I've been super picky too. Like, we've had deals come in where we're like, nope, not a deal, not for us. Comes back a couple months later, nope, not a deal. And then we get creative on the financing piece of it and work the owner finance piece or loan assumptions, or get it to where all of a sudden it's not negative, now it's positive cash flow, and now we have equity in it. And we're like, okay, that makes too much sense. So get creative with your financing and ask for more owner financing. Just ask. Present it with your cash offer, and then if that doesn't work, maybe they'll owner finance it. Who knows? And the last piece of advice, if you notice on the funding side, 2 of these 3 come from really successful lenders. So this last one comes from my buddy, Tim Harridge. And a lot of people say this, but he's the first one that I heard. Marry the property, date the rate. Now, your loan officer is gonna tell you that because they want you to buy a loan, right? They want you to do a loan with them. Like, don't worry about the rate, right? It's all about the property. But there's some truth to that. And so if you can make deals work, but they're not as great as you wanted them to be, like the margins aren't as fantastic on cash flow, but it still works. If it's a great property, then my recommendation, and what I'm doing, you don't have to follow me, is get into the deal because you can refinance later. You're not married to the rate unless you have some crazy prepayment penalties. So open up your mind a little bit on different ways that you can do deals on the funding side. So we've covered funding, buying good deals, selling flips. What about on these last 2? Sales process. Get a solid, repeatable process in place is something we've spent a lot of time on lately. Get in front of the right buyers. Try to find out what your buyers want, right? It's no longer the days of just blasting something out and just sitting back and waiting for the offers to roll in. You gotta see what your buyers are actually looking for and then match them with deals that accomplish that. Get creative, not only on the buy side, but on the sell side. Sometimes people are like, hey, I can't buy it cash, but I could do it if we structure it like this. Get creative to do the deal or do no deal, right? It's an easy decision. And again, hone your craft and sales skills. Like I said early on, this is the time where you become really, really good at what you're doing. So that later, when it gets a little bit easier, you're like, I got this. You grow. All right, bringing it back home. Your challenges will work in your favor if you let them. I talk about taking ownership of the situation that you're in, what got you here, challenges you're facing. If you'll use them and learn from them, then they can work in your favor. And in hard times, this is often what progress feels like, right? We want things to just keep going up and going up and going up. And every time we have a little setback, we have a little dip right there. It's like, we went backwards. And time passes. And you go up, you have a setback. You made a mistake, the market turned, whatever happened, there's a setback. What that feels like to me is lost time. It's like, it's not the fact that I made a mistake or went backwards. It's the fact that that's time I'm never gonna get back. And when you think about it that way, it's pretty destructive. It may feel true, but it's not a healthy way of looking at it. And I've learned something completely different. I've learned that growth doesn't have to be linear. It can be exponential. So we all want things to keep going up and to the right in a steady line. And anytime we go down, it wastes time, it takes us off our path. But growth can be exponential and sudden. So if you let challenging times work in your favor, you can find yourself in a place where you just keep hitting your head against the wall over and over and over, but then suddenly you get through it. All of a sudden you've got these skills that you've developed. You've innovated in your company. And you got into a place where it just seems like overnight, overnight success that took all this time, you just take off. That trajectory was me, 2015 when I started my company, my last year at Texas Tech, all the way to 2022. And I made this graph to represent my rental portfolio because it's something that's tangible that we can measure. And a lot of people saw the rental portfolio in 2022, just a couple years ago, and they're like, oh, you've done awesome things, you're doing great. I felt like I've spent all these years, like that's a lot of years, and I had a setback, and I had a setback. And I just felt like I was way behind where I needed to be. Then 2023 hit. Our company was able to double the rental portfolio in 1 year from what we had built up for the past 7 years. So we took 7 years worth of work and mistakes and lessons and setbacks, condensed the results to do the exact same thing, accomplish the exact same thing in 1 year. And 2024, we've already surpassed everything we did last year and everything we did for the first 7 years of business. And I shared my notes of how I was waking up just like literally ready to fight every single day back in 2019. And each day that's passed and each month and year that's passed, it felt like, okay, I'm making some progress, but I've had setbacks. I'm behind on time is how I felt. But if you can let your challenges work in your favor and not against you, you can have a time where it just takes off. Something clicks and you have exponential growth. And all the time that you thought that you missed out on and that you had wasted and all the setbacks where you're like, I'm never gonna make this up. You can literally make it all up in a month. You just have to develop yourself, develop your skills, develop your business, and just keep going until that time comes. Now, the sad part is we don't know when the time will come, right? It could be a long time. So you gotta have endurance, but your growth can definitely be exponential. It does not have to be linear. So I hope that gives y'all some hope today.